All right. Just
Jamie
about to,
Baker's just on his way. He's trying to get in right now. Just give it a second.
okay. All right.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. I think most of the folks are here probably. Then I'll just get going. I've started to record the session, so if you feel that someone needs to know this after the session, wants to understand this capability, can do that. Let me just share my screen here in a moment. Let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yes, we can. Yep.
All right. So just a brief introduction before we get going. So I am Amit Asawa. I'm a product manager for data governance capabilities within the Spectrum platform. So I'm with Naveen's organization and reporting to him. Um, so once you install Spectrum, this is the landing page here. You can go to the platform client tools, go to the web, and hit metadata insights. Once you click on the metadata insights, you are in the landing page of metadata insights. So this applications has 6 major capabilities here, right? 6 functionalities. Connect means obviously you can connect to a variety of data source, which I'll talk about in a moment. Discover is a place where you can really find and understand the assets of your enterprise. So once you're connected, you can understand what kind of semantic information it has, where are your different PII stored, and you can start creating a catalog based out of it. Defining the glossary is starting to build and manage a glossary of your business terms and your KPIs there, and this is controlled, um, and this has a workflow mechanism as well, so that you can approve it. You can create some um, accountability on the different stakeholders of the organization. Modeling, as we all know, is defining the data the way business wants to understand it rather than tables and columns. So what are the different understand the data, and then the mapping process is powered by data federation. Profiling and monitoring is understanding the data quality and then creating the scorecards out of that. So basically you configure your KPI and start understanding the start measuring and monitoring your data quality KPIs. And finally, lineage and impact analysis helps you in understanding the complete data journey, right from sources to destination. What are the different transformations the data has been through into? So today's demonstration will just focus on the connect and the discovery of the PII. So how do we go about this process? So once you hit the connect icon, you are uh, you can connect to the variety of source systems, whether it's a big data or whether it's a different RDBMS, flat files, enterprise systems, so on and so forth. And once you have connected to the data sources, like the way we have done it here, you will see the list of connections and so on and so forth. Now, the next step is to go to the Discover application. Now, this is a Google-like search application where you have your recent searches, your saved searches, your entire list of connections. When you have discovered, have that discovery process is taken, what are the different asset counts, when it was discovered, so on and so forth. Right. And you'll also see the different tables and the different columns have been, discovered. I think someone is waiting on the lobby. Has someone admitted? Or if not, then
Yes, I did.
okay. All right. Thanks.
Amit?
Yeah, go
Amit?
ahead. Go ahead.
This is Gabriel. So I have to sort of have an inventory of all my data sources somewhere so that I can
Yes.
go in and connect to them. Yeah? Okay, thanks.
Correct. So once you have connected to the data sources, so this is the landing page where you see your recent searches, your, the saved searches. So you can start creating a catalog, and this is
Mhm.
the, the list of connections, the different asset count, when it has
Mhm.
been discovered, so on and so forth, and what are the different tables and the different columns which has been discovered. So let's
Yep.
say I want to search for everything which I have hooked up. So what happens is, yeah, the metadata comes in the form of nice little cards. So you can see here, this is the combination of everything, which is tables and columns. Interestingly, you can go to the columns and see, the um, different columns coming from all the variety of data sources you have hooked up to. And this is the power that it automatically detects the semantic type. So this has been detected as, this contains phones, and we can actually go into the details of this card, of this metadata, and you can see, okay, this is a column with an asset type. This is a string. The semantic type is phone. Based on the contents of the data, the application was able to identify that this column contains phone. I have tagged it as PII. This is coming from phone data. This is a flat file. The connection name is phone details. The other information, if it is valid, it will come that, whether it's a key column, whether the nulls are allowed, and so on and so forth. Browsing these cards are very simple. The way you browse internet, you can start browsing the different cards. Um, so that's how the information comes in. I have tagged certain cards as PII. So the moment I tag them, I see all of the PII information here, right? Whether it's an email address, whether it's a gender, phone, the passport, and so on and so forth. Let me just, right. Uh, the cool feature of this application is, if the column name is not a standard column name. So for example, this card, it's had a column one as a very very generic column name, but based on the contents of the column, it was able to identify that this has city information. And I tagged it that, as a, this is a PII for me, and I said then I use this column for city information. If you're looking for a city information for a customer, use this column. So that's how the whole tagging process works here. And we have given, since it's a search based application and you can get drawn into a lot of information, this a lot of filter gives you this capability to narrow down your information. So you can actually filter it by connection type if you want. You can filter it by connection name if you will. If it's available in a certain table, that's also possible. Or a typical semantic type, like you just want to understand, for example, phones. You can filter it by phones, or you were just interested in, um, let's say, gender information. You should be able to do that. So that's how the whole filtering capability works here. And um, the other aspects of this application is we give a lot of interactivity within this application. So for example, um, uh, if you want to understand the quality of this last name, right? So I'll just hit this. Give me a moment, since it's a AWS, maybe it might take some time, right? So it will actually drill down to that particular table and say, okay, right, this is the quality of the data. So this is just like a Trillium discovery, or this is the profiling application, which will actually give you the quality of the data, right? So how much of the rows are, let's say for example, null. So you can actually see those rows. Okay, these are some of the last names which has null, and the other statistics around the data, right, which is the frequency, the string lengths, the distribution, the pattern, so on and so forth. So a lot of data quality related statistics, which helps you to understand what are the different data quality issues reside within your data. If you look at the tables here, right, again, every card comes with the detailed information here, and we give again a lot of interactivity within those cards. You can, of course, like we tagged it, we can tag the tables as well. You can either see the related tables. If you have not created a canned glossary, you can promote this as a business glossary entity. So for example, you didn't had a order as a glossary, and you wanted a glossary which is should be described as an order, so we can do that. You From here itself, you can understand the quality of the complete table. So you will jump into a profiling statistics page, or you can understand the lineage of that particular table as well, right? Um, so this is in short is all about the understanding the PI data and so on and so forth, right? So you can so we this system comes in with some of the canned PII, or with a canned semantic type. So this is the list here. It is residing besides the glossary. So this application has provides a lot of canned semantic types. So out of the box, it it can detect whether it's a credit card, whether it's a gender, last name, um, email, so on and so forth. Plus, you can define your own semantic type, right? So we had a client which wanted to configure their own PI. So for example, they wanted to configure passport numbers. So what we do is we give a couple of capabilities. Either you can use define it using a regular expression, or you can provide a list of values. That's also possible, right? So based on that, once you define this here, the entire application understand it. So once you connect a data source, you discover it, it will be able to identify passport numbers, it would be able to identify a business party. So this is a central place of managing this whole semantic type. Once you define it here, every other application would be able to understand it, right? So the canned semantic type works as is, but if you want to define your own PI, that should also be possible. So those are the possibilities of I would say identification of PII, and then understanding them from a quality perspective as well, and finding the lineage as well. So I'll if you have any questions, if not, then maybe if you're interested in other parts of the application, I can talk about it. Does anybody has any questions?
So can you give some, talk a little bit about how you might work with a data set? You just do a connection to a system and
Correct.
let it
So
fly, or what do you talk about
yes,
that a little bit?
right. So if the moment you define your connection, right? So let's say I have a connections in, for example, I have a connection in Salesforce. The
I got an
moment I
idea.
define,
How about
yeah,
DB2?
Yeah, DB2. Tell us about DB2.
right. So the moment you can connect it to DB2, once you have defined the connections, your connection would be displayed here, right, which is this place, and you say discover. The moment you discover it, all your semantic type would be discovered, and it would come in the form of cards, which I just showed you, right? So you will see your information just like you are seeing it here, right?
And where is that information stored?
You mean this whole semantic? This is stored in the elastic
Okay, so it's
object.
like, you have an AWS site or something that you store
No,
that?
elastic is a technology which is used for storing the metadata
Okay.
underneath.
Would that be
That's it.
on-prem or would that be on?
So this application is currently on-prem supported, but if you want it in a private cloud, that's also possible. That's not a
Got it.
problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So, I mean, since you support DB2, does that mean you can connect to mainframes and to AS400s? Just anything with
Mainframes
the ODBC, JDBC, or
through JDBC we can, yes. Not through ODBC, but JDBC we can.
okay.
All right. The other things I think still, if folks are still um, uh, can come back on the questions, but just to share, what else you can do, you can create a complete glossary of PII, right? If you want to, just like I have created a glossaries for the other entities, you can create a glossary for PII. If you want to model it, so for example, I just created a PII glossary. Um, and I want to model it, you can see here, this is the PII model. And I want to map it with the physical data sources. You can of course do that based on the discovered applications, and based on the semantic classification. It has given me suggestions, where are the different first names, date of births, and everything is there. I can map it with one of the suggestions, which is the best suggestion. I can go about, and if there is any joins, I can apply that. If there is any business conditions, I can apply that. If not, I can here see that, if I map it with the different physical columns, this is how my data would look like. And yeah, so this is how my data would look like. You can then save your model, and the next step can be, you can understand the quality of the data, which I just showed you, right? Which is the different attributes, um, and the different statistics of the different PI, right? Whether it's frequency, completeness, uniqueness, so on and so forth. I'll not go into the details of this, but you understand the power of this application in terms of, identification of PII, and understanding the quality of the data. And then if there are any business rules which you have incorporated, or which the business had listed down, you can actually create the scorecards of it, right? So what do you mean by accuracy, consistency, and so on and so forth. And you can also understand how your data quality has improved over the period of time. Let me just show you here, right? So um, based on the data quality processes you have run, um, based on the profiling results, how dirty your data was. You did some cleansing, you did some standardization, and so on and so forth. And then you can also understand how the data quality trends, how the data quality is improved over the period of time. So that's how you can, manage your complete metadata and data. You can schedule then, um, schedule the scorecards, schedule the profiles, so on and so forth, right? And just to show you creating, or how you can create these scorecards. Pretty simple. um, Very user friendly drag and drop rule builder, right? Based on what you have defined in your glossary in terms of your data quality rules or your business rules, which are attached to those PII or to those columns. You can configure these rules and start creating your KPI. So what do you mean by consistency, and what is completeness for you, so on and so forth. um, Adjust a threshold as to, what is good for you, or what's your threshold for, what's your acceptable range, what's good for you. And once you've done that, you get those scorecard, which is completely driven by the business rules associated with those PII. So that's how you can go end to end, you know the governance of your PII, or I would say your metadata and data. So I think that's about it. I wanted to cover in today's session. I think the focus was more around identification of PII. How do you manage PII? And then I just talked about a little bit as to, how you can connect to those different data sources, how you can also start understanding the quality of the data, and measuring and monitoring it as well, and start taking some actions based on the insights. Um, are there any questions which I can answer?
How long does the discovery process typically take? Can you talk about that a little bit?
So it is completely based on the machine size. So, right, we can share you some of the, performance numbers if you're interested with. I can share that to you.
Well, how about a few ballpark, like maybe you got a system that's a database. I assume you would look at all tables and all columns within a schema or an instance of a database. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. So if you can see here, right? So I 24 tables, 389 columns. It took 2 minutes 32 seconds, for example, in MS SQL, right?
How about like if you're dealing with let's say a 5 terabyte database? Any idea how long that would take?
I'm yet to comment on this because I have to go back to the the QA documents and share that with you. That's as I said,
Sure.
if you're looking for something specific, I can definitely get back to you, and also can get back to you on terms of what should be the ideal machine sizing from that perspective.
Well, it's okay. I would expect it to take a while,
Sure,
and
because
that would be part of our challenges. We would have to work with, you know, when a good time to run it is, and so forth.
correct, you can do it an overnight thing as well, right? If you're really talking about some large databases.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a question about the mapping.
Hmm.
So that's kind of am I understanding this correctly? It's basically a manual process, and then after I've done my mapping, I should have kind of a picture of the entire flow of data through my organization. Am I understanding that that correctly?
Right. So from a model perspective, once I did that, what happened was, let's look at this, for example. What happens is once you have connected to your mapping, you can, so this is not a manual process actually, because this gives you suggestions, right? So just,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where do those
right.
suggestions come from? Just from
So this is
the
some of the machine learning,
system
yeah, system.
analyzing?
Yes. So it has analyzed that you wanted to create or you wanted to map the attributes. So these were your logical entities, right? This was your PII,
Mm-hmm.
for example.
Yep.
And based on what you have discovered and you have tagged, right, this gives suggestions which is the best matching with these logical entities, right? And this is suggestions coming from across your sources, right? It can be 8 to 10 data sources you have configured, and it gives you the mapping suggestion. So you can rely on these suggestions, but you can do a manual um, mapping as well, right? But you can rely on this suggestion, and you can say, okay, I
Okay.
want to map everything which has been given to me, and you can start on connecting the data, and I showed you, how the preview looks like. Now once it is done, what essentially it means is then you can start understanding the quality, you can start applying data quality processes, and start measuring and monitoring the data quality. So that's how the whole mapping thing works.
Got it. Thanks.
And this is all powered by data federation technology, so you don't have to move data. So this modeling and mapping process is actually virtualized data, so the data would still reside in the source system. I'm not pulling data into something, right? So
Right.
this is completely data federation technology.
Nice.
All right, this I think, but just before I can just quickly show what I mean by lineage here. If you can just give me a second. So this is a piece which can show you exactly how your data is moving, right? So what I created a logical model, right? And then I can also see, what are the different tables which were constitute of this model, so on and so forth. So you can um, either understand the lineage of this, or you can understand, the impact of this, right? So a lot of other possibilities are there from an impact standpoint. So this is another facet of this application where you can understand, how this table is contributing to different models, or the different scores and so on and so forth. So this is the lineage part, which is generally used in auditing perspective. Okay, I think that was it for this call. We can hang up if you guys don't have any questions. Hopefully, I was able to address the need.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very
Appreciate
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank
No
you.
problem. Thanks. Bye.
Thank